Welcome to the Real Retail Podcast. I'm happy to have you today, dear Melissa. Your podcast, your lecturing, your participation in seminars have been keeping you very busy recently. And with your wealth of knowledge that you have, it would be great today and a great opportunity to share with those who are interested in all things retail to learn about what has been going on for the past year in retail. So today I wanted to discuss with you retail trends and how they are affecting both the environment and the consumer. But I cannot but say that I love that we're doing this together and it's you this time on the other side of the
I'm
table.
so excited to be here, Galia. And you know what? I'm excited and I'm also really nervous. And I'm going to put that right out there right now at the beginning of this podcast. Because of course, as you know, I'm used to being on the other side. I'm used to hosting. But I can feel my heart going at a million miles an hour because it's very rare that I'm on the other side. But I know our beliefs around retail are so aligned. So I knew this was a good place to come on as a guest. I'm super excited to have this conversation because with your knowledge as well of the industry, which blows me away with your writings and, the insights that you share, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And actually, it's only relevant to have you with me today because if you're on that other side and with your podcast, you are always in touch with people from the industry. It's only natural that you have grown as well a wealth of information about what has been happening and how managers have been dealing with all of these changes on the retail market. So today we're going to be talking about that. Maybe it's a cliche topic, however, there's always a thing or two to add about retail. So we're talking pretty much today about emerging technologies and especially AI. It's a big deal today in retail. So in your opinion, Melissa, how are emerging technologies such as AI and augmented reality impacting the retail landscape? And in your opinion, what implications do they have for both retailers and consumers?
It's a fascinating yet really timely topic, Galia, because of course, 2023, I think, was the year of AI. It exploded out there, especially to the consumer, and we have to be mindful of that. But it's really exciting. And again, I'm gonna kind of put my cards on the table here and say I'm glad it's coming. I'm glad that it's starting to kind of really start to spill into mainstream retail. I think it's super exciting. But with that, and you know what I'm like, my head is always in frontline retail because that's who I work with. I'm incredibly mindful that AI is great, but it is nothing without the basics in retail. So for me, it's the icing on the cake. It can't be the whole cake. You can't magically drive customers into your stores that are empty, that are filthy, that don't have stock. You can't drive them to your website with your amazing AI, whether it be content, whether it be pictures, if your website's full of out of stock. So for me, almost roll it back. We have to roll it back. And I think day in, day out now in retail, even though AI is here and it's super exciting, and we see from NRF that it was all about retail, AI in retail this year, we've got to talk about the basics, Galia. Like we have to keep banging on, or certainly I do. I have to talk about customer service. So it brings it right back to the very beginning. If the service level isn't there in your store or on your online platform, and let's keep that in mind, then what are you doing? And I think I've been really vocal about this, that I embrace the technology. I think it's super important moving forward. I think it shows how agile our industry is, but if those basics aren't there, what's the point? Like, I'm constantly reminded of something Michelle Grant from Salesforce said to me a few months ago. 53% of shoppers say they had said that the worst retail experience wasn't based on the damaged goods, it wasn't based on the out of stocks. And of course, they're really frustrating. It was just about bad service. So,
Yeah.
how is AI going to magically like resolve the bad service?
Mm.
It's not. So for me, retailing 101 first, got to get the basics right. When the basics are right, then let's pile on with the AI. It is so exciting out there. And I'm certainly talking about it in the classroom at the moment because, again, our future leaders are very used to kind of predictive AI. We use it for forecasting and things, but this whole exciting idea of generative AI should be propelling us forward, not actually just exposing the gaps that we now have in the industry. And my fear is for the next couple of years that the majority of retailers are now starting to expose the issues they have more so with AI.
Right. And really interesting that you have put it that way, because most of the times we are forgetting that for brands to grow, they have to have their basis, they have to have
Yeah.
their core, they have to have their complements, and then the augmentation is at third level. And somehow we both feel that retailers and consumers get carried on away directly. Like there's something new, like we have to jump on that bandwagon and we have to follow up with everyone because they have been doing it, but otherwise we have forgotten all the essential. And when you have no foundations, it's only normal that your brand will not be taking off. But with this integration of AI, prediction or creation, and so on and so forth, we have seen also that the role of the consumer with these technologies is becoming more important. It has been very important lately, but it also has more power. Do you think that consumers also are, through AI, shifting the dynamic of retail and maybe behavior with retailers who
I
are
think they're
making it?
starting to play with it, and why I laugh is there was an article or an item on the news there recently from one of our, we say call them a third party transport provider. I won't name them; it won't be fair. Um, but of course, the AI bot was there. There was someone obviously looking for their parcel, trying to figure out. They realized it was AI, not an actual person that they
Mm,
were talking to on the back end of the chatbot. And of course, they then started to ask the AI, well, look, the customer said, you're rubbish. Name your best competitor. So of course, the AI started to talk back to it and name the competition and how brilliant they were. He said to the AI, chatbot, talk to me and explain the situation and swear at me. I'm like, this is shocking, but this is what's happening out there. So I think obviously that's an extreme and it made the media because it was seen as funny, quite dangerous for the brand. But that shows what AI can do. So again, I think consumers are becoming more savvy to it. They're starting to understand it because we're hearing more and more, of course, about open AI generally in the media. So there is a huge understanding there. And of course, education with the consumer is vital. But with it still has to come brand values. And again, it's back to basics that we can't be introducing these things because it makes life easier for us as a brand, as a retailer. It has to suit the customer's needs. So again, I think we're almost seeing those gaps in the customer journey because AI is not always functioning in the right way. But of course, when it does, it's exciting. And I think if it, it personalizes the journey or it hyper personalizes the journey for the consumer, then you have a loyal customer. And of course, that's what it's about. So again, we're not there. I'm sure if we have this conversation now in a year or two's time, when we look at AI for retail, I'm hoping it won't be as fractured as it is at the moment, but I still think it's super exciting.
yeah. Well, let's observe that. For the in 2024. And naturally, we talk a lot about AI, but there is also e-commerce, and it's always an issue that brands and online and offline brands doing war or doing peace together. But with the rise of e-commerce and e-commerce giants such as Shein, such as Temu, such as Amazon, um, how are bricks and mortar stores adapting to stay competitive? And in your opinion, what are strategies proving to be most effective in attracting and retaining consumers into that physical store?
I think almost to answer that backwards, we've seen this explosion, and of course, it really excites me into these incredible in store experiences. And they have to be. So, whether it's the all singing, all dancing, actual physical look of the store that's enticing, from the windows to the communication and the branding to the actual bits you can touch and feel in store, I think that's exciting. So, we see a lot of the newer flagship stores now across the world opening in 2023, coming into 2024, that are screaming at you to say, come on in and talk to me. But again, with my frontline, work ahead on, we also have to include in that the service level, surprise, surprise, there she goes again. That service level has to be there. And with that, then, of course, the product knowledge has to be there. And that's something for me that, you can't hyper personalize an in-store experience unless the person in front of you, that colleague, really knows and understands the brands they're selling. They know the nuances about the brands, that they can provide a solution for the customer's problem. And we have to remember that's what retail is fundamentally, is we
Mm,
are providing solutions to a customer's problem. So unless that person in that store can do it for the shopper, then again, what are we doing? We've got bells and whistles on in our store. We've spent loads of money in investing in opening new stores or a pop-up. But if again, the basics aren't there, then it's really hard to kind of keep that customer coming back.
right.
You and I have spoken about pop-ups and that customer hitting it for the first time, that one-off kind of journey. But none of us want a one-off. We want to keep them coming back. So again, all those pieces have to be together now more than ever for these in-store experiences. There has to be a reason to drive me to go in. I have to get the right education or idea from the person I'm talking to. There has to be a reason that I want to be loyal to you, not who's down the road. So I think there's huge scope in 2024 for these kind of physical stores to really entice us, because look, we all know on the back of COVID that we are still shopping in person. We like that human to human interaction. We love that communication. But of course, you're going to get fed up if you're going in, there's not enough people on the floor because staff shortages are huge across retail globally at the moment. If the shelves are half empty because you have logistical problems, if the place is filthy because, of course, people have been pulled and pushed around the place. It's nerve-wracking at the same time that even though on the one hand we're saying that physical stores are it, they've got to be all singing or dancing, that actually again, if those basics aren't there, we're damaging our brand values. And that scares me because I think I'm seeing that more and more. So there's
Right.
kind of your journey from a physical perspective. But online again, I think it's exciting. I know, talking to a lot of the bigger global brands last year, that online has been pulled back a little bit because we're shopping more face to face, and I genuinely think that will continue into 2024. But I also think consumers are using our online platforms in a slightly different way. We're educating ourselves, we're researching ourselves through these platforms, but again, we're not necessarily buying because we're going into store because we want to touch and feel, or we are buying when it's repeat purchases, as in it's a quick fix. I'll buy it on my lunchtime. I'm probably buying from my phone, not from a desktop. And I
Right.
think that's definitely going to continue. So again, I think it's all to play for. It's a retail, it's agile, and it's exciting.
Do you know that I somehow have the impression that with that conversation about omnichannel, when
Mm,
you have several channels that are occupying you, and many add-ons that you can integrate to each channel and each format within that channel. Somehow, your mind is not concentrated on one
yeah.
thing, and you're not doing that thing right. You're moving into actions and enhancements here and there, and hoping to create something that is fluid. You hope that your customer experience is seamless in store, online, and so on and so forth, but we're not being able to do that because we're not being able to control our actions, and therefore every effort is going somehow in vain because I forgot about the basics again, and so on and so forth. Interesting. And so retail into 2024 is also about sustainability and ethical consumption. And this is like becoming an increasingly important topic to consumer. So how are retailers responding to this demand? And what innovative, if we want to call them innovative, approaches are being taken to promote environmentally and socially responsible practices?
This is a phenomenal question, and I think it's a question that will just, get bigger and bigger now over the next few years because it is becoming so important. But I actually think our customer base now, our shoppers, it's almost stretched even further. Like, we really are seeing now shoppers that don't care. I know I'm not
Mm,
meant to say that, but
mm,
shoppers that
mm,
just, do you know, a cost of living crisis across the world still at the moment. There's an awful lot of people out there that can't afford to invest in shopping sustainably. They're grabbing what they can, whether it's to feed their family or to clothe their school children, and that's not front of mind. So there's them. There's obviously a general consensus in the middle of people that are learning, that want to shop more sustainably, that want to shop more ethically. They're interested maybe in the provenance of where things are coming from, how they're made. It's kind of creeping into that whole CSG area. And then, of course, we've got the Go cohort that are so super pinpointed into being more sustainable, really only shopping with brands that are, that some brands can't shoehorn themselves into one of those three people, that they're almost talking to those three consumers at the same time. And it's almost becoming a little wishy-washy out there. And I
yeah.
suppose the reason I say that is in Ireland recently, we've all obviously just launched this new, bringing and recycling your plastic bottles and cans back to grocery stores. So they've put these mega machines in, they've pushed these mega machines into our grocery stores here. You now pay 15 cents extra for your bottle of Coca-Cola or your can of fizzy pop, but then you bring it back, you're enticed to then bring it back, get your couple of pennies back, use that off your shopping, and they're hoping that that will encourage people to recycle. So that's it there in a really basic level. But of course, then we've got the brands like IKEA who are really trying to entice people that even though they're obviously selling a low cost model and high volume, bring those bits of furniture back, we'll resell them for you. It's
Mm,
bringing that furniture back to another life, a second home. We've obviously, everyone knows, Patagonia have been way out there in front for the last few years, pushing ahead. But again, I think we were almost all things to all people now in retail. We're trying, but fundamentally, again, I think it's educating the customer. It's being really truthful. It's walking away from the greenwashing, because again, you've mentioned brands there a few minutes ago who might be super low price, who have exploded across commerce across the globe. But actually, what's that doing when we start to strip back, the ethics of how things are made, maybe what they're paying people to make them, the fact that they're then shipping, millions of packages across the globe every day. What's that doing? So again, I think it's a journey like everything at the moment. And I don't know, maybe that's what it is coming out of COVID, that there doesn't seem to be any hard and fast trends or rules at the moment. It kind of feels like we're all on a journey. So we've got absolute market leaders like IKEA or Patagonia. And then we have the brands like Shein or Temu that we just don't know really from a
mm, mm.
sustainability aspect what's going on there. It's definitely one to watch. But of course, we've got consumers who don't care what's going on with sustainability with them, and consumers who wouldn't touch them with the barge pole. So I think it's fascinating. It all seems to be open for play at the moment, but I get the feeling with most retailers they're finding their feet, and
Yeah.
the good ones are being really honest about it. And I think consumers respect that. They really do.
It's giving everyone a little moment of reflection, if we want to use the term
Yeah.
reflection, to see how that, if they have the best intentions, how best can they integrate that dimension within their brand practices. So we have been talking a lot or mentioning a lot the pandemic in our discussion because it has a great influence actually on the tea moment and then the moments that preceded it. So the pandemic has dramatically accelerated the shift towards online shopping and then later on physical retail. And then physical retail started picking up. But today, how are retailers, in your opinion, leveraging digital channels to enhance the customer experience? And what are the challenges that they face in maintaining a cohesive omnichannel strategy? And we have been talking a lot about omnichannel strategy, but in your opinion, how do these things come into place?
I think it really, for me, and maybe I simplify it too much because again, that's talking to an awful lot of students, is it comes back to brand values first. Like
Hmm.
you have to abide by your values first and foremost. What do they stand for? Do your people, and again, people for me is so important. It really is that, are we educating? Are we training? Are we listening to our people? Whether it's C-suite or all the way down to someone that's working for 6 hours for the brand. You know, do they understand the values? Are we driving the values forward? but also, are we genuinely putting the customer at the heart of everything we do? So many brands talk about customer centricity and they talk about the customer journey, but then it goes out the window because we have strategies to do X and to do Y, and we don't bring it back to the customer. So for me to have a truly, I suppose, cohesive omni-channel experience, or I suppose it could be almost opti-channel now, as was said to me before Christmas, which I love. Are we providing the channel that the customer wants, not what we want as a brand, but actually are we providing the right channel in the right way for the customer to shop with us at any time, day or night? If we say we do, then I think that's really important. So again, the really good retailers out there, and I say Opti-Channel, I think of Brown Thomas, who are an incredible luxury brand. And, that's a brand that you go into store, it is clean and tidy. Genuinely now, the staff on the ground have incredible product knowledge to hyper personalize for you in the moment for what you want in a beautiful way. The same can be said on their website, the same can be said about their app. And that's really reaching the consumer in every which way. There's inspiration there, which again entices people to buy. There's the traditional, I suppose, add-ons that are there. There's different ways to pay. So they are really speaking to the customer in the customer's terms. And I genuinely think that's the way forward for retail. It isn't about omni-channel. It isn't just about commerce anymore. It has to be the idea that we will build whatever platforms they are, whether it's the traditional way or with AI, but we are speaking to the consumer and selling to them in the way that they want to take it. So whether it's on the bus on the way to work, whether it's sitting on the sofa with a glass of wine and your slippers, or whether it's physically in your store, that actually it's one cohesive message because that's what the customer wants. And if they pop onto your TikTok page or your Instagram page, that again, it all just feels the same. It looks the same. It's the same message. And I genuinely think going forward that with the use of retail tech as well along the way, that's how consumers want to shop. It should be easy for them, not for you as
Yes.
the retailer, but it has to be easy for the shopper.
Customer centricity in the right way
Exactly.
and the right usage. So actually, this leads to my last question for today, Melissa. It's about consumer behavior. And this behavior has been constantly evolving. And yet alone, the past 3 years, we have seen a shift in consumer
Yeah.
behavior. So what recent trends have emerged in terms of shopping habits and preferences? And how are retailers adapting their marketing, merchandising, and other types of in-store strategies to cater to these changing trends?
I think we definitely see the rise of retail media, and that's obviously the traditional media that we might see in store, which is really starting to work for customers. Obviously, huge trends across social media. We're still seeing that at key times of year. We're obviously seeing live commerce happen more and more. But again, for me, it's bringing back to the basics. And the reason I say that, I had a really strange shopping experience before Christmas. I was in the Middle East, in Doha, in the airport. Incredible.
Amazing.
And it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I was transiting through, and I was like, I'll treat myself. It's a perfect place to shop because it is glorious. And the marketing around the airport was about gifting because it's that time of year. Do you think I could spend €1? The whole experience was actually so disappointing on the ground that I walked away frustrated, slightly annoyed, because again, I was in a spending mood. I was happy to spend. I wanted to treat myself. I ended up walking to the gate without spending an absolute penny. And I think that's where it's fractured. I think we see
Mm.
with some brands that they go so heavily to invest in social media or to marketing or to comms or their website, but actually, when it comes to it, again, there's a real fractured experience that either stuff's out of stock,
Mm.
either we haven't told the customer how to buy, so they're frustrated, or again, there's no kind of link between me wanting to buy something and someone serving me or
Yeah.
talking to me or
Yeah.
allowing me to buy. And there's the frustration. And I think I almost thought that day in the airport, there was thousands of people transiting through. How many of them had the same experience? How much money was lost that day?
Mm.
And I think that can be replicated across the world in all sorts of verticals. But on the other side of that, I think, look, when it goes well, when all those things are aligned, shopping should be easy. Retail, To be really honest, and let's be really frank, it's an incredible industry, but for the consumer, they shouldn't really have to think twice about doing it.
Mm,
It should be
mm.
a
Has to come
seamless
natural.
blended. It does, because I think
Yeah.
when we think too hard about the shopping experience as a consumer, I shouldn't work hard to spend my money. It should be
Yes,
easy at the end of the day.
exactly.
And that's exactly what C-suite leaders out there, whether they're in retail tech, whether they're in traditional retail with a traditional brand, that's got to be the aim. And I have to say, most retailers out there aren't quite there yet. So I think that's something for 2024 and beyond that we really have to strive to achieve.
Oh my God, thank you so much for these insights. I mean, if I can withdraw one sentence, I don't want to use the term one word. I would say go back to basics, like review your basics and just don't overcomplicate things. Simplify, simplify. And it seems, Melissa, that simplification is the hardest thing to do.
It is, but you know what? We have an incredible industry. It's unbelievably agile. It's an exciting place to be right now.
Mm,
And I think simplification, definitely with the use of tech, I think let's embrace it when it adds to the journey, when it
yeah.
makes it more seamless. I think that's definitely the way forward for 2024.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for this talk. I'm so happy that we managed to do this. And if you have any final words to share with us, and please, if you can tell us how we can find you on the website and your podcast, maybe our listeners would also like to join you on the Tea Retail Break podcast.
Oh, I would absolutely love that. And of course, we've had a phenomenal episode on pop-up stores there back a few months ago on the Retail Tea Break podcast. You'll find it across all podcast platforms. You'll find the page on LinkedIn as well. And look, I'd love to connect with anyone listening. Melissa Moore on LinkedIn, or of course, the retailadvisor.ie and the Retail Advisor on Instagram.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you for all of this information. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And hopefully, see you soon on a new episode.
Thanks, Galia.
Thank you.